Don't mess with someone whose friend has ties to the mob. Welcome back to Reddit Chronicles. If you're new here, consider subscribing to help me feed my channel and grow my cat. And if you liked the video, I kindly ask you to give it a thumbs up to help me out. Let's get started. This is a story that's been told to me by my mother about her father and his friend's family back in the mid-60s. Now a bit of background here. My grandfather and his friend were childhood friends and were as thick as thieves. They both were first-generation Americans to Polish immigrants and both had jobs at the local water treatment plant. They were inseparable. They lived on the same street, took vacations together, went bowling every week, and did whatever else average Americans in the 60s did. Hate communism? Watch Gilligan's Island? This was true for their kids as well, who were for the most part all around the same age, late teens to early 20s, except my mom, who was 8 at the time. One Sunday, when the friend was supposed to come over to watch football, he failed to show up. His friend was always punctual, so this got my grandfather very concerned. So naturally, he called his house to see what was the matter. His friend was inconsolable, on the verge of tears. This alarmed my grandfather, because this guy was a World War II vet who saw a lot of battle and never showed his emotions. My grandfather quickly found out that the reason was that early that morning, he found his eldest daughter on the front porch, badly injured. She had recently broken up with her fiancé and had went over to his place the night before to get some of her things. The two of them got into an argument, which escalated into him beating and raping her. After it was over, she just walked home in shock, and since in her state had left her keys at his place, she sat on the porch until her father woke up and went out for the morning paper. My grandfather was fuming over this and asked him if they had called the police, to which his friend said that he did, and there was nothing they could do. He explained that the ex had a rock-solid alibi from all his friends who said they were out drinking that night. When you combine it with them having a publicly known falling out, him being the son of a city councilman, and, well, it being the 60s, the cops pretty much shrugged and did nothing. Now even though my mom was so young, she still to this day remembers how quickly he turned from anger to emotionless and almost robotic when he said that, "I wouldn't worry about it," meaning the investigation. "These things have a way of working themselves out," and then saying he would call him back later. My grandfather then told my grandmother, who was in the room and very concerned, that he needed to go run an errand, and an hour later, he came back as if nothing had happened. A few weeks had gone by. The friend's daughter was slowly healing, but was still in a bad place. The friend was still trying to get something done with the case, but kept hitting a wall due to who the guy was. One day, my grandfather suggested they all go to the state fair, which had just come into town, to take their minds off the incident. His friend didn't want to go, but my grandfather insisted, saying that he would even pay. So they went to the fair and had a pretty good time. The entire time, my grandfather insisted on taking group photos together. Oh, I think I know where this is going. He even bought several souvenirs for the kids. My mom got a teddy bear, which she still has. When the day was over, they drive home, where they find a couple of police cars in front of the friend's house. The cops were looking for the friend, and immediately started asking him questions as soon as he got out of his car. It turns out that morning, as the ex-fiancé was going for a walk, he was jumped by two large guys, who proceeded to throw him in the back of their car and then dump him in front of the local hospital 3 hours later, with every bone in both legs and arms, several ribs, nose, and jaw broken. Now it's at this point I should mention that my grandfather was a high-ranking member in the local labor union at a time when the mafia had serious ties to it. We've never been able to confirm it, but had always suspected that my grandfather had some friends who the FBI were interested in. So as the police questioned my grandfather's friend on his whereabouts that day, my grandfather interrupted to tell the police that they were all together that day. He gestures to the souvenirs and even says if they waited an hour, he'd have the pictures developed that he had taken throughout the day. Eventually, having nothing to go on, they left and nothing ever came of it. My grandfather's friend just looked at him in disbelief, and before he could even say anything, my grandfather just said, "You know, the crime in this city is getting worse by the day." He then patted his friend on the shoulder and smiled at him. His friend then gave him a big bear hug. He thanked him for their day at the fair, and they called it a night. The two of them stayed friends for the rest of their lives and never spoke about that day again. Fortunately, the friend's daughter was able to heal from the attack and later got married and had a couple of kids. She's still friends with my one aunt and is doing great. Now occasionally, my mom or one of her siblings would ask my grandfather about the incident, and he would just say, "That was a terrible crime. I hope they catch whoever did that," before changing the subject. While I'm not 100% sure if all of this is true, my mom and 2 aunts have all separately attributed the story to the same wheelchair-bound local guy who is very weary anytime he sees any member of my or the friend's family around town. Huh. Seems like the ex-fiancé would have been better off if he just confessed to the crime. Well, now you know. Before you mess with someone, make sure that they, their family, or their friends don't have connections with the mafia. Paintballs. Not safe for work. Reposting from r/pro-revenge because illegal actions got it taken down from there. Not my story, but an old trucker who doesn't have Reddit. We got stuck at sea on a rescue boat yesterday and passed the time sharing pro-revenge stories. So, as told by him, I was a field trucker, say that 5 times fast. I had a regular daily route in my state and would start just after 4 p.m, so I was refilling the area's gas stations roughly after evening rush. This had me driving late into the night. In this one small town, it seemed like every night around 10, this in a T-top would pass me on the road while jerking off. He always seemed to find me, pull up next to me on the highway, and try to get my attention before zipping off down the road. One week, I saw him 3 nights in a row at the same red light. It was summer, so he had his roof down each time. Then I got an idea. A wonderful idea. When I got home, I gathered what I needed from my teenage son's room and slept better than I had in weeks. The next night, as I drove down the small, rural, deep south town, sure enough, Mr. T-Top pulled up next to me, a-whacking it and giggling as he looked up at me, noticing my window was down for the first time. Then he saw the paintball gun. My son was avid at the sport and had saved for a long time to buy this thing and modify it out for team/league stuff. My point is, it could shoot very, very fast. And I lit him up. The insides of his car, him, and his lap were covered in green paint in about 3 seconds. I don't know how long it took him to get in gear and run out that red light, but I was empty before he was out of the intersection. Never saw him again. Driving down the highway while jerking off, huh? You do have to hand it to the guy. That takes a certain amount of skill. Manager thought my job role was unnecessary. Finds out the hard way, it wasn't. Here's a case of 2 distinct acts of revenge, combining in spectacular fashion to create nuclear revenge. Thanks to Redditors and pro-revenge for rewrite help. About 20 years ago, I was a sales engineering supporting sales rep at douchebag tech company DTC. A new sales manager joins the team. He was a former coworker from a prior job, a petty little man. Prior, we were peers. Now he was a manager over the sales reps I supported. I had a separate chain of command. He was not my manager, but he felt he should be. He was resentful of the power that sales engineers in this new company had. In an attempt to show me up, he closed a very large deal with a banking company, ABC, and did so without any involvement from the sales engineers, just one sales rep. He gloats about it publicly, talks about he didn't even need sales engineers, the whole 9 yards. Later, the manager calls me in a panic, and we talk with the customer. The sales rep and the sales rep manager totally things up, and sold the customer an incompatible set of solutions. I say that the customer could exchange one bit of stuff for another bit of stuff. Everything would work, and they're roughly the same price, so nobody would lose any money. But the sales manager doesn't want to do it, because admitting he f***ed up would make him look bad, and he is at me for bringing up the price, because that's supposed to be the rep's job. He calls my boss, and it's all over me. My boss took his side, and it's all over me too. So I'm like, F you, I quit. I sent a very lengthy, detailed letter to HR, explaining how the sales rep f***ed up, lied to the customer, and how the sales manager and my boss tried to make me the scapegoat instead of trying to fix it, which would have been easy and made everyone happy. I move on, get a new job, do other things. At some point, I'm chatting with an old friend from DTC, and he mentions they f***ed up a huge deal that they had spent a year on. I'm still bitter about the douchebag sales rep manager and my boss, so I post about it on a forum a bunch of investors use. The stock price crashed $13 the next day. This will be important later. I find out ABC is suing DTC for f***ing up the deal that the douchebag sales rep manager f***ed up and tried to pin on me. I reach out to ABC, send them a copy of the letter I sent to HR, in which I detailed precisely how badly DTC f***ed them over. I talked with one of their lawyers, and he's very happy, especially the part in my letter where I describe how the sales rep lied to ABC. DTC subpoenas me for a deposition. I have to tell DTC's lawyers everything that I told ABC's lawyers. Lawyer stuff. The day before the deposition, DTC sues me directly. Remember DTC's stock crashing? They're suing me for bad-mouthing the company and attempting to short their stock, which I wasn't. However, there's a twist. Because DTC is suing me directly, I don't have to say to them at the deposition. Their preparation for the lawsuit goes completely out the window. They know they're because they read the letter I sent HR, but they don't know how because they don't know what else I know or what I've told ABC's lawyers. Additionally, because they never deposed me, they can't catch me contradicting myself between what I say at the deposition and at trial. They're dumbfounded. No idea how they could have f***ed up this badly. Turns out, there were two legal teams, one defending against ABC's lawsuit, and another trying to scare people away from talking about the company on the internet by indiscriminately suing their critics. They don't communicate with each other, and the one team didn't mention to the other team that they would be suing a key witness in the other's case. DTC settles the lawsuit with ABC, and they drop the lawsuit against me, and they fire the sales rep manager, and his manager too. Yup, communication is key. If you have a story about when somebody who was going after you effed up, share it in the comment section. If you want more where that came from, simply click on one of these boxes right here. And if you liked the video, I assume you did since you're still here, share it with your friends to see what they think. And of course, if you haven't already, click the kitty to subscribe and you'll never miss another video. I'll see you in the next episode of Reddit Chronicles.